Kobe Bryant is one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. I mean, 5 championships, MVP, scoring titles, the man's a legend. But something that a lot of people don't realize is that he also holds the record for the most missed shots in NBA history to this day. Now, I'm no Kobe Bryant, especially not on the basketball court, but I learned something that applies just as much in sales as it does to basketball. See, last year I jumped on a podcast, the Life Insurance Academy podcast with Roger Short, and we had a conversation about how I was able to take my income from $6,000 a month to $16,000 a month within a 30-day period. And I did not do it by getting any better. I didn't learn any fancy fucking script. And if you're feeling stuck and you want to start making more sales today, make sure you watch it till the very end. I hope you enjoy it.
When you came over, you struggled.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about that because for people that are watching right now, you get in the business, you talked about bouncers. You know, some people are bouncers. I call it shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, people are like always looking for the next thing that seems easier than the thing that they're doing that they don't want to actually commit to and doing the work and getting good at. And I think that's the thing that separates people who are become extremely successful and people who never find success is that a lot of people are trying to find it easy. And the minute they start having resistance, they feel like because I'm having resistance must mean there must be an easier or better way. Therefore, I'm going to try to find that other way instead of this way. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, they don't stay consistent doing what they're doing because it's hard. It's hard, right? Being consistent, showing up, putting in the time, putting in the work over and over when it's not producing results. Like that's where the success happens. You see, you know, these the football season this year, right? Kansas City, San Francisco. You see these Super Bowl champions. What we don't see is all the work that's put in over the years. Yeah, you know, when
the Rocky cut scene.
It's all the stuff that you don't see that's happening behind the scenes. Yep. We only see the end result, and a lot of people come into the business, and that's what they're looking for because social media says you just do this and this and this. If you think this way, put these three principles in practice, and you'll make $1 million. How I scaled from $0 to $1 million in 90 days. I mean, it's a farce. You have to put in the work. So the transition over here was hard for you. Why was it hard? What were you doing, and how did you eventually find your way? Let's talk about what you were doing first and how that process.
It was the first thing was actually expectations, because it's what you just said. Everybody has their Rocky cutscene moment in life, but the problem with the Rocky cutscene is that in the movie it's a couple of seconds, and in real life it could be many, many years. Yeah. And I think what you just said, social media, everyone's posting about how great they're doing. And you don't see, first of all, whether it's real or not, or how long it took them.
Correct.
And so I'm comparing myself to everybody around me or what I'm seeing, and I'm thinking, this isn't working fast enough. Maybe I just suck. So that was actually what made it.
Well, the second part was right.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Right? That's the thing that we don't admit to ourselves.
Absolutely, actually.
Right? That's the thing we don't want to admit to ourselves. I suck right now.
Yeah.
And how do I stop sucking?
Yeah.
Well, I got to just be consistent and put in the work. And that's right. That's the part that nobody wants to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing that finally, when I realized that I do suck, and that is okay. Right, like no one was just born being good at selling life insurance. You didn't come out there like IUL
or good at anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
anything.
Yeah, and and I just kept thinking like, well, what about like the Super Bowl? They're training, daily. I mean, they're putting countless hours in, and it's weird that we think that we can show up to this business and just be good at something without putting in the hours of training. Mm-hmm. Like going out and talking to clients is the Friday night lights, right? Like that's the game. So how are you going to expect yourself to be good in the game when you're not showing up to practice, right? So I wasn't practicing. I wasn't showing up to practice. I was just going out there, throwing myself out there, which is good too, right? It's better to have activity than no activity than being one of those, someone who's just waiting, not overtraining, but
overthinking, over-processing, trying to make sure everything's perfect before they start. Yeah.
But once you get past that point where, okay, cool, I'm going out there and I'm no longer overthinking or procrastinating, then it becomes, well, how can I get better outside of the hours that I'm actually out in the field, right? So, anyway, but I think the number one thing though that was holding me back was it was a consistency. I would have a bad couple of days. Remember one time I told you, I think when we were out to dinner, you
I think I told you, man, I had a couple bad days, like, and it just really discouraged me. You were like, well, how many days, was it that you sold nothing? I was like, 2 days. You're like, 2 days? And to me, that was a lot. I'm like, I'm bad at this. But you're like, 2 days, and yeah, when I look back at my week, I was like, well, I sold 3 out of those 5 days. There were just 2 bad days. I still made money. But when I wasn't tracking my numbers and when you're not tracking your stuff, you're just dealing out of emotion. So after those 2 days, I felt terrible. Like I felt like it wasn't working out.
Because you're basing your decisions on how you feel, emotion. Not on the reality of your numbers.
Exactly, yeah. And so that would cause me to become inconsistent because what would happen is I'd feel burnt out. And when I would feel burnt out, I'd show up to the field later because I slept in a little more because I was tired because I'm burnt out. When I'm in the field, I've got a little bit of an attitude because I'm like, oh, these clients, like, like whatever. I'm like, and blaming everything but myself. And so it's just like a negative cycle that happens, right? So I would, my emotion would cause me to become inconsistent, and that inconsistency would cause me to make less money. Having less money in my account would cause my emotion to get right, and then it would just become that cycle.
Spiral.
Exactly.
It's like a Death Star.
Yeah.
It's like a black hole vortex sucking you in.
Yeah. So I would say that was the biggest thing, was just not being consistent, because I was out in the field every day. So I thought I was consistent, but the hours I was putting, I heard somewhere else the other day. I don't know. Can I name people? Is that okay? Give credit? Yeah. John Wetmore. He was, I was listening to him the other day, and he's like, some people swear that they're dialing all day, but really you're just taking all day to dial. I love that, because that's what I would go out to the field, Roger, and before heading to my next house, if I got rejected, I would sit in my car and just watch something to clear my mind, and I'd be there for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour sometimes. So it was just, it was really that, dealing out of emotion and the inconsistencies in my work.
So you were doing field sales, you were working final expense leads, and then you decided to make a transition to telesales.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to make that transition?
My biggest reason was because from day one, I've been focused on building a team. I love what we do, but I know that I would like your life, and I would like to be able to step away one day and not retire. But I mean, I can only do so much on my own efforts. I've known that from day one, so I've always had that focus, right? So everything that I do, every decision I make is leading to how can I build a bigger team or train them better. And so the way that I see it, I think phone sales is more efficient to train. It's the only way I can really train field sales is if they're local, or they fly out here, or I fly it there, and that's not very efficient. So I just I realized, well, if I really want to build a big team, it'll probably be more efficient if I can learn phone sales so I can teach it, because you can train that anywhere.
Yeah. So when you transitioned from field to phone, now you had another obstacle.
Yeah, I made like $6,000 that month, I think, or all month.
Less. Right? You probably made less the first month.
Yeah. When we first started.
You first transitioned to telesales?
I quit the first time. I quit. Yeah. So I did it. We did it back in July, I think, for the first time, and I did it for about a month. It was, I did
miserable.
Terrible. Miserable. Hated it.
And your emotions got you.
Yes, absolutely.
So then you went back to the field.
Went back to the field. And you know what's interesting about that is when I quit, I blamed a lot of things. One of the things I blamed was that business is not sticking as much. I used to say phone sales is a little riskier because it doesn't stick as much, on the books as field sales. I don't know why I thought that, because when later on, one of the reasons I also came back to it was when I started tracking my numbers, I tracked all the way back to when I was doing field sales and telesales. All of my business stuck except for like 2 policies. I was like, those 2 policies made it seem, because they were bigger policies, made it seem to me like if all of it was, charging back or whatever. And again, I was dealing with emotion, and it caused me to make a decision off of emotion. If I would have just stuck it out, I would have gotten this, way better a lot faster, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
So you started, it was miserable, your emotions got the best, you quit, you went back because that seemed easier.
Yeah.
This was harder.
Yeah.
And then you decided you had to swing back and focus on telesales. And then I want to go back 2 months, and we reviewed numbers here.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be referencing this book for you guys in just a moment. I've referenced it before on the podcast. This book has been one of the most influential books for me in the insurance space, and it's a narrative. Frank Betchker tells the story of how he raised himself from failure to success in selling. I know you just finished the book.
Just finished it. Yeah.
And I recommend that book to everybody.
Yeah.
This book has a foreword by Dale Carnegie, and this guy, some of the principles in here really impacted the way I think about business.
Yeah.
And it's from a narrative standpoint. But you started tracking your numbers. And one of the things I respected about you is you started showing up to your office consistently. Working from home, you found you had distractions.
Yes.
Now, there's going to be people on here that work from home.
Yeah.
What are the inherent distractions working from home? What you need to tell them what they're going to face working from home, or carving out a space where they can dedicate time and focus, and why that's important, and what you had to do to solve it.
Yeah. Well, first there's the major ones. If you have kids, that's a given, right? I mean, if you have kids and you're the only one taking care of them, I mean, obviously they're going to take some attention away, right?
Yeah.
So, finding someone that maybe can look out, take care of them while you're working, I mean, I think is pretty essential. And then, for me, we have a dog. We don't have a kid, but we have a practice kid. That's our dog. And he would just, if he would need food or if he would need to get taken out, I'd be the one to take him out. And either me or Alyssa, we were both doing phone sales. But the problem was, I mean, that's something you have to do. You got to, take care of what you got to take care of. But the issue was, whenever I would and I'd come back, it'd take me a really longer than it should have to get back on task.
Yeah.
So those little things that you have to do, I think it's easy to have you get off track more than you should. But those are like the things that you might just have to do. But there's other things too where I would just get hungry. I stress eat sometimes. So I would just get hungry and then decide to randomly just get up and make myself a snack, and then I'd eat it while watching something, and then wash my plate or whatever.
An hour later?
Exactly, and then get back to work, right? And then I'd probably do that again. So I just took 2 hour-long breaks throughout the day. Other things too, I mean, there's just a lot of things you'll find when you're at home. I mean, that's your place of relaxation for the most part, right? Or some people maybe not so much if you had a chaotic household, but because I come from that too. But I'm saying, it's just there's so much other things that you can do, and it's just so easy to get off track. When you have an office or when you have a workspace you can show up to, I mean, it's harder for you to get off task. So it's going to be easier for you to, stick to your schedule and stay consistent. Exactly. But what I would say though, at least to combat that helped me, because I still work from home on Saturdays, so I like working Saturdays. So what I do now is, as soon as I start dialing, I clock in. So I have that on my spreadsheet where I track my numbers. I clock in, and anytime I have to get up, take any kind of break, I clock out. And then I clock back in when I'm making my first dial. The only thing that counts is dial time. If I have to call a company or call a downline or anything, that does not count as work time or dial time. So at the end of the day, I will count up all the times that I clocked in, clocked out, and I count my hours. And so when I started doing that, I would see that I'd dial all day, and I just did 4 hours of dialing.
Yeah, all day. You took all day to dial.
Yeah. So
John Wetmore principle.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think if you are working from home, maybe something like that could help, so that you can at least see things as reality, right? So, and maybe that'll help you, figure things out. How can I make those hours actually efficient?
So I want to talk a little bit about some of your transition here. And some people may think that it was a script that changed everything for you, or a certain type of lead that changed everything for you. And I would say that you've probably had success now using different lead types, different CRM. But what you found is you found a system that works for you. You developed a system.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Because I can see that you have developed a system over the last 90 days.
Yeah.
And the thing that I respect about what you've done is you've showed up consistently. You started showing up earlier, right, to the office, getting in earlier, starting earlier. You realized you were getting started too late because you wanted to do all these other things in the morning, right, that you thought were really, really important.
Yeah.
But because you weren't getting started so late, then the emotional spiral starts taking place when you're not having financial success. But you started earlier in the day, and things started translating in a massive way. Frank Betchker, in his book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling, talks about the one significant thing that he did in chapter 2 that changed everything for him, and that was going back to record keeping and tracking his numbers. He almost quit the business.
Yeah.
He snuck into the office. It was a big bullpen area. He was cleaning out his desk. Mr. Walter Lamar Talbot, the president of the company, walks out and gives a talk, calls an impromptu sales meeting, and he got stuck at his cubicle while he was trying to quit.
That's right.
And he had to sit in the meeting.
Yeah.
Do you remember that story?
I remember that now. Yeah.
And Walter Lamar Talbot says, ladies and gentlemen, any person who's willing to tell their story 4 to 5 times a day can't help but making good in this business. There are no secrets. That's it. That's the only thing. And Frank Betcher said to himself, I may not be great. I may not be able to close. I may not understand everything about life insurance yet, but I know I can tell my story 4 or 5 times a day. I know I can do that. And if Mr. Lamar Talbot can do it, Walter Lamar Talbot can do it, I can do it. I respect him. If he can do it, I can do it. Just tell your story. Commit to that. And so he started that process. And so he unquit in the middle of that meeting, just by the skin of his teeth, whatever, providence, right time, right place. And he started tracking his numbers, and it changed everything for him. I know you just read this book, and we went over your numbers, Kevin, and I'm super impressed. And you mind if we share those numbers?
Sure.
And maybe Adam can throw these numbers up. Can you throw these numbers up on screen as we go through them? Because this is important. And maybe like a little spreadsheet or something. I don't know how you want to display them, Adam. But so we're going to go back. Right now it's in February. February of 2024. I'm going to date the podcast. No, Adam, you hate it when I do that. But I'm dating the podcast. February 2024, and we're going to look at December's numbers and January's numbers, the last 2 months.
Yeah.
In December, you tracked your numbers, and you went back, and we went over, and you made 1,455 dials in December. Now, some new people are like, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of calls.
Yeah.
It's a lot of calls, right?
Sounds like a lot on paper, I guess.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
There was really 3 full work weeks because Christmas was in there.
Yeah.
And you probably took some time off. So I'm giving you credit for 3 weeks of work in December.
Yeah.
That average is 485 a week. Dialing, clocked in time, right?
Yeah.
Presentations, you said you gave 31 presentations from those dials and leads. That's averaging 10.3 presentations a week. That's not bad. 10.3, that's a 33% close rate, right? It could be a little higher.
2 a day, I guess.
Right? It could be a little bit higher in your close ratio, or your per weekly, I mean. So you had your presentation's 31 for the month, 10.3 for the week.
Yeah.
Out of that, you had 9 closes for the month. Now, typically, we'd like to see that number move closer to, like moving up towards 50%.
Yeah.
But at the very least, if you know your numbers, you can scale up just simply by doing more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you were averaging 3 closes per week. So 9 for the month, 3 for the week.
Yeah.
3.3, okay, for the week. Something like that. The premium submitted. You submitted $6,192 in premium for the month of December.
Yeah.
Total. That's averaging only $2,064 per week.
Yeah.
You put in a total, once you clocked your hours, you put in a total for the entire month of December, 68 hours.
Yeah.
You worked an average of 22.6 hours a week.
Crazy, huh?
That's less than part-time.
Yeah.
Right? But you're full-time.
Yeah.
Less than part-time, but you're full-time.
Yeah.
You actually invested $1,225 in leads for the month, which averaged out about $408 a week in leads and marketing to generate those opportunities for those 1,455 dials. So 1,455 dials, 31 presentations, 9 closes. You submitted $6,192 in premium. You worked 68 hours, and you invested $1,225 in marketing leads. Let's go to January. January, you're like, I got to get this on track. When you looked at your numbers, you realized you were just taking all day to dial. You weren't dialing all day.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Were you happy with 22 hours a week?
No.
Work?
No, I wasn't.
Like, were you proud to stand up and tell your team, hey guys, I'm working a full 22 hours this week?
No, I was not.
Right? Guys, I want to tell you, people who are getting after it, they're putting in 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
They're getting after it. They're putting in 12 hours a day. Now, you might not be putting in 12 hours, selling time, but you've got admin stuff to do. You got some prep work to do, but you got at least 8 hours of revenue generating activity, and that's where the focus needs to be, right? So now let's fast forward to January. So January, here comes the numbers in January. Let's do the comparison. 10,521 dials in January.
Yeah.
You 7 times your dials. You increased your dials by 7 times.
Yeah.
Crazy good numbers. You increased your lead investment from $1,225 to over $3,000, almost $3,100. So it was only a 3 times lead spend increase, but you 7 times your dials. Yeah. So you were like, I'm going to get a hold of these leads. I got 3,000 invested this month. I'm getting a hold of these people. You actually did 118 presentations. You 4 times your presentations.
Yeah.
Right? You 7 times your dials. You 4 times your presentations, but you less than 3 times your lead investment. So for less than 3 times your lead investment, you actually quadrupled, your presentations.
Right.
And then you went from 9 closes to 35 closes. Yeah. You 4 times your closes. 4 times your closes. That's crazy. Your premium that you submitted in January, $39,084 versus $6,192. Dude, that's awesome. That's more than 6 times the premium.
Yeah. What gets me sometimes is, so did you say you're good at math. I don't know how you did all that in your head. I 4 times my presentations and my closes, right?
You 4 times your presentations and you 4 times your closes, but you didn't even 4 times your lead spend.
Right.
But you 7 times your dials.
What gets me about this that I look at all the time is what that means. If you think about it, right? If I 4 times my presentation amount and I 4 times my closes, that means that my closing rate didn't necessarily get a lot better.
You didn't actually get any better. You still suck.
I still suck. I still suck, Roger. Like,
nah, you.
I still suck. No, but I made a heck of a lot more money.
You made a heck of a lot more money at maintaining your closing ratio.
Yeah.
You just increased your contact ratio.
Yeah.
Right? You put in a lot more work on the front end.
Yeah.
And I think what motivated you was committing to spending more marketing dollars. And you were like, I've got to make this work.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you applied pressure to yourself with the lead investment?
To be real honest with you, I don't think it was so much that, because I was used to spending on leads before. Mm-hmm. That was actually my normal. That's what I typically do in a month. December was just a little slower. What it was for me is I was just tired. I was tired of having those type of months.
Yeah.
That's all it really was.
Well, look at the hours. So the one number that we didn't put in was your hours worked.
Yeah.
So for the month, 223 hours versus 68 hours.
Yeah. That was it. Right
you
there.
averaged not 22 hours a week, but you averaged 49.5 hours a week.
Yeah.
In work time.
Yeah.
Like you went from a part-time job to a full-time entrepreneur position. And you deposited, can I share these numbers?
Sure, yeah.
So he deposited $6,400 in December. Mm-hmm. In January, $16,500 in deposits.
Yeah.
And here we are, what's the date? The 11th?
I think
Is it the 11th?
The 12th?
12th of February?
12th, yeah.
And you already deposited how much this month so far?
About 8,000.
About 8,000 so far.
Yeah.
And we're only at the 12th.
Yeah.
So if you just keep moving at the pace you're going, you'll be over that 16,000 number again.
Yeah.
How does it feel, man, to be able to like go, okay, like I can 3 times my earnings almost just by tracking my numbers? What does that do for you with this emotional roller coaster and your emotional intelligence that you were always struggling with before? What does that do for you?
Oh my God, it's if you can actually commit to this, it's unbelievable because it's something I love. Just identifying what's in my control, what's out of my control. You can't even really control how much you can close, really, because it's a skill. So you can control getting better, but you can't really, you're dealing with people. You can control numbers. You can control writing down numbers. Yes. So I love that I'm able to just, like when I realized, okay, my average ratio is about 30%. I think that's what it ended up being. I can close 30% of the people that I present to and present to about 30 to 40% of the people I call. When I saw that on paper, it told me, okay, so all I have to do is call more people. Like that is in my control 100%. No one can take that away from me.
100%.
So That's amazing. Like when you can just, because it makes everything so much more realistic. Now it's not a dream, and now it's not a maybe or I hope I'll try. It's it becomes easy. Like now now it's easy. Like and I never thought I'd say that because I was struggling so bad, but now it's so easy because
It's easy how? Is the work easy or is it emotionally easy?
I would say a little bit of both. Because even the work feels easy now, Roger, believe it or not, because I stopped looking at and I know a lot of people struggle with like, I know we tell a lot of times to our team, you need to treat this like a business. I found that for me, it's better when you treat it like a job. Like I stopped treating it like my own business, and I'm like, stop worrying about the commissions and stop worrying about the dream. Just show up, clock in, shut up, do your work, and then clock out. And at the end of the day, you'll get paid in a week or two, right? Like a normal job.
Yeah.
I started looking at it like that. So it's just show up on time, clock in. Because what happens if we don't show up on time at our job? We get fired.
Correct.
Well, that's what happens every week to a lot of our agents. They're not showing up, so they're firing themselves. That's why they're not getting paid. So it becomes easy because I'm just not even thinking about that anymore. I just show up, I do my job, I'm connecting with people, I'm having fun with them. I don't care if I make a sale or not because I know that if I call these people, I'm going to make the money at the end of the week anyway. So and then when you have that pressure off of you, I feel like it just feels a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, I guess, yeah, you're right, emotionally easy, but yeah.
You made a comment to me, and we'll wrap this up. But you made a comment to me. You said when I first started growing my team, I struggled getting people to want to show up on my Zooms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now they want to join my Zoom calls.
I have people outside of my team calling to,
Get on your Zooms.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I've walked the walk. I know. I know. One conversation we had was when I was in the other company. In MLM culture, there's a lot of fake it till you make it. Right. That's what they'll train, because it's like, okay, you don't have this yet. Fake it, like act as if was the thing, and eventually you'll have it. I've learned that doesn't work for me. I don't know if that. I'm not gonna say whether or not that works for people, but didn't work for me. I was still broke. What worked is walk it before you talk it. Because if you can walk it, now you have that conviction, and nobody can argue with you the reality of the opportunity. Because now I'm no longer saying this can happen if you do X, Y, and Z. All I'm saying now is this is what I did, and no one can argue that.
Correct.
No one can argue what worked for me because it's tangible. So yeah, I think that's what happened is now that I've walked the walk, I've actually done it. It's just, not only is it easier for me to have the conviction when I train, but it's also, it's just people are seeing it. It's something you can't argue. You can't argue with numbers. They don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Walk it so you can talk it, man.
Yep.
I love that. So now you have people joining your Zooms, understanding the process, hearing you get hung up on, hearing you dealing with the objections.
Yeah.
Hearing you overcome those objections, hearing you helping people. I walked in on you the other day and you were having this real connected conversation about someone who had just lost a relative.
Yeah.
And it was not about selling. You were just listening and you were understanding, and I heard empathy, and you were beyond just trying to remember what you were supposed to say next in the script.
Yeah.
And that's the really cool part of where we are in sales. And so while we talk about a principled sales system to move people to a better place, you have to put in the work. And without the work and the numbers and the consistency of those numbers, you actually never get to a place of competence.
Yeah.
And that competence comes by putting in the reps consistently. And if you don't know your numbers, you're going to be an emotional roller coaster because you're making those decisions emotionally, not intuitively, not logically. And that's where most people derail themselves. And that's why 92% of the people fail. So man, I'm proud of you for what you're doing. Now you got people coming into the office, sitting next to you, listening. They're shadowing you in person. They're shadowing you on Zooms, and you're building your team. And now you have principles that you can point to.
Yeah.